Here with Louis Riddick in our studio, and it's time for a game of Is That Ridiculous? I will make a statement and you will tell me if you think it is ridiculous. Louis, is it ridiculous to suggest the Steelers need to draft a quarterback next week in Pittsburgh?
No, it's not ridiculous at all. Look, they have to have some kind of plan for the long term at this position. They can't always every year, just throw up their hands and go, hey, look, we're kind of stuck in that purgatory type of state where we're not bad enough to really get a high round pick. We don't have really enough ammunition to really move up and get the guy that we want. It doesn't have to be in the first round that you address this position either. It doesn't have to be in the first round. What's to preclude you from saying, hey, look, maybe we can draft a Carson Beck later on. Maybe we can draft a Garrett Nussmeier. See if we can develop him. See if maybe that's a better option than Will Howard, who's in-house right now. I think both of them are, so I don't think it's ridiculous at all.
Okay, we'll see if the Steelers wind up doing that again if the draft is in their city. Next, if I said Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, who ran 4.39 at the combine at that size, if I said he's the best pass catcher in this draft, is that ridiculous?
It's ridiculous, and I mean that with all due respect. Look, the guy's a freak now. Okay, he's probably the best athlete in this entire draft class, him and Sonny Styles. But as far as being a true pass catcher, look, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson will have something to say about that. Makai Lemon, you've got some really, really talented pass catchers that are going to hit the ground running immediately. Kenyon's going to too, but I just think that there's guys who really specialize in catching the football out on the perimeter who are going to have some great careers. This kid as well.
All right, then let me get to one more, and that's Philadelphia. Let's start with their quarterback situation. If I said the Eagles should draft a quarterback at some point next weekend, is that ridiculous?
No, it's not ridiculous. Look, they've done this before. That's how Jalen Hurts wound up being a Philadelphia Eagle. You didn't think that they needed a quarterback at the time, but that's the best time to acquire quarterbacks is when you don't need one. And I'm not saying you should just stockpile a position and close your eyes to needs on the rest of the roster. But this is a position that bears watching. Whether or not people want to admit that or not, or uncomfortable talking about it or not, I think that is definitely something that could be in play. They've done it before. And I wouldn't kind of like rule it out to see them do that once again.
I'm with you, and it'll be very interesting to see. Yesterday, their general manager, Howie Roseman, was asked about Jalen Hurts standing on the team. This after that article that posted earlier this month by our Jeremy Fowler and Tim McManus that highlighted friction between the quarterback and the team. This is what Howie had to say.
I have seen those reports. Bob and our PR staff do a great job of showing us what we need to see. I would say that we have some faults. One of them is not being direct and honest with our players and the conversations with our players. So for us, if we have any issue with any of our players, we talk to them directly. I think that it's unfair. It's unfair to have these articles written, but I understand it's also what sells at this point. So, yeah, I think it's unfortunate.
And that was an enormous amount of words that he just said there. And none of them were, Jalen Hurts is our guy. This is ridiculous. We love him. Look, I'm not sitting here parsing his words. Howie Roseman's going to the Hall of Fame. So I'm not sitting here suggesting he needs to say stuff. But I thought it was striking, Kmart, and I can see you already rolling your eyes at the topic. It was striking.
One topic I'm tired of is the Eagles.
Talk to me about the quarterback.
So,
what did you hear there?
Unfortunately, this is my frustration with the Eagles is that they know their words will be parsed, like Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman. So a lot of these things they can nip in the bud with very strong language. And so the word salad just now only opens up the speculation of like, what's he saying? What is he really? So Louis just said, don't rule out quarterback. Understood, a lot of great teams, they draft quarterbacks before they need them. But when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, I see a team that is quarterbacked by a Super Bowl winning starter who from the time he got his starting job has one of the best records in the NFL. That's what I'm looking at. And yet still, there's all this criticism of Jalen Hurts that I do not understand. But because in that market, within that building, things just seem to be a little wonky. It wouldn't surprise me if they took a quarterback.
Want to have a little fun? Let's have a little fun. Hey, Mel Kiper, what do you think of all the people who say the Eagles' problem is at the quarterback position? Mel, what's your perspective on that?
I think he's the Rodney Dangerfield of NFL quarterbacks. He gets no respect, and that's Jalen Hurts for what he's done in the postseason, guys. Those touchdowns with 21 to 3 interceptions, throwing a fumble, that's 21-4, 73% completion percentage in the Super Bowls. They need offensive linemen. Stoutland's gone. It's a different blocking scheme up front. Another tight end, wide receiver. Help Jalen Hurts. He's 27 years of age. He's accomplished more up until now than all these other quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson has struggled mightily in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts has not. So again, there you go. Give the man the respect he deserves. Help him out this year. O-line, tight end, wide receiver. Get some support around him. Jalen Hurts is a heck of a quarterback.
Jalen Hurts is a fascinating player, right? The evaluations on Jalen Hurts fascinate me.
It drives me crazy.
What part of it?
Because when you criticize Lamar Jackson, it is he just hasn't won the big one.
Right.
He's talented, but he hasn't won the big one. And then you look at Jalen Hurts. He's won the big one. He's outplayed Patrick Mahomes twice in 2 different Super Bowls. And it's, he's just not as talented. I don't know. It never makes sense. Tell me how we're supposed to be evaluating these quarterbacks. Because is it the clutch gene? Is it on the biggest stage? Is that where you want your best stars to shine?
Well, sure
or
you do.
it's, I want him to win MVPs because both of these guys fit that
Yeah,
criteria.
what I find interesting is this, though. It's like, okay, so, and I had somebody approach me about this just this past weekend. It's like, I'm not making this up about Jalen Hurts.
Right.
I didn't sit here and go, hey, you know what? I just want to sit here and I want to rip Jalen Hurts today. I just kind of want to sit here and like kind of bang on him and just see if that gets any traction. The people in his own building are the ones who kind of start this talk, right? So if there are some legitimate, let's just say, if there is some legitimate friction inside the building, whether it be between the player and coaches, players and players, whether or not they feel as though that he's holding back the offense, that it could be even better if there were certain things that maybe he was more, open to as far as offensive scheme, how they deploy people, how they deploy players, maybe being a little bit more like, let's just say, open to having a more diverse playbook. That's not us making that stuff up. That's people kind of like spilling this kind of stuff and talking about it. Now, let me just move forward and say this. Do I think they need to like draft his successor? No, I don't. But this is a football team, and GMs are charged with trying to see problems down the road that don't necessarily exist in the present. Look, they drafted him when they had a franchise quarterback in the fold already. So could they still be looking at drafting someone and saying, hey, look, we're going to draft a young developmental player. We may not need him right now, but let's just see. The expectation is not for him to come in here and replace Jalen Hurts, but we need to have a succession plan or have a quality backup, a quality quarterback room. Those are the kind of things that could happen here. But I don't think the media made this up about what's going on with him. This is something that's happened in their own locker room. We're just talking about it.
So we'll have more time to get a little more into this as we continue. Somewhere in the conversation, we should mention that he's had 6 different people calling plays in his 7 seasons in the NFL.
True.
True. So when you take that into account and the stability that Lamar has had, and even more so that Josh Allen has had, and some of the other young quarterbacks who would be of his generation, that somewhere has to go into the mix. We'll have more time to talk about it as we continue. I need to get up and go here. That's brought to you by our friends at